Hello, everyone. Welcome to our discussion for the expense segregation techniques. There are three popular methods in separating the fixed from the variable cost of a mixed account. We have the high-low method, the scatter graph method, and least squares method. But in this lecture video, we will be focusing on the high-low method first. The objective of this lecture discussion is to define the high-low method and to solve the illustrative example using the high-low method. The high-low method is the traditional method of cost segregation. In statistics, it is called as the range analysis. Using the high-low method, variable cost rate is computed by dividing the change in the cost over the related change in base. The base, it can be a unit of measure such as direct labor hours, direct labor cost, machine hours, units of production, numbers of shipments, setup time, and other activity bases. After the variable cost rate is calculated, the total fixed cost is determined by getting the difference between the total cost and the variable cost. With that definition, we should be able to arrive that the total cost is equal to total variable cost plus total fixed cost. Or in this case, TC is equal to TVC plus TFC. Then if you wanted to get the total cost less total variable cost, that will also be equal to total fixed cost. These will be the relevant formulas that we should be able to use if we're trying to solve for the high-low method. Let's have this illustrative example. We have here the machine hours and the total cost for the month of January until April. For the requirements, we should be able to compute for the variable cost rate, the total fixed cost, and we should be able to compute for the budgeted cost for the month of May. Please be careful when analyzing this type of problem. You should not be able to look for the highest and the lowest total cost. What we should be using here is the highest and the lowest machine hours. Or basically, you should be able to get the highest and the lowest level of activity. And the second thing that you have to be careful here is that if there will be data for outliers, how can you say that a specific data is an outlier? So first, it is stated in the problem. So for example, the highest level of activity here is 7,200. But the problem will tell you that this is an outlier, then you should be able to exclude all the outliers. Then second is to practice intuition. So if you can see a pattern in the machine hours, let's say the highest machine hours here is 7,200, but the next one is 15,000 machine hours. That 15,000 machine hours should not be considered in the computation using high-low method. Let's answer this one. The highest level of activity here is 7,200. So 7,200 less. The lowest level of activity here is 6,400. So this will be our denominator. Then we should be able to establish our numerator. Once you get the highest and the lowest level of activity, we should be able to get its total cost. So the total cost for the 7,200 here is 450. Should be able to write it here, 450,000, less the total cost for the 6,400 machine hours, and that is 418,000. Again, if you are working out with the high-low method, please don't look for the total cost, but look for the machine hours, then get the total cost of that high and low machine hours. Okay, now let's try to solve for the numerator. 450,000 less 418,000, you're going to get 32,000 pesos. Then 7,200 less 6,400, you're going to get 800 Then let's divide 32,000 divided by 800. You're going to get 40 pesos per unit. Meaning to say that in every machine hours, the variable cost rate here is 40 pesos. Okay, so we're done with the variable cost rate. Then let's go to the total fixed cost. Remember that the total fixed cost is the difference between the total cost less the total variable cost. So let's get here the highest level of activity. The total cost is 450,000 less the 40 variable cost rate multiplied by the 7,200 machine hours. It is not per unit, but it should be per machine hours, MH. Okay? So 450,000 less 40 multiplied by 7,200. This is 288,000. Then we should be able to get the difference of these two. 450,000 pesos less 288,000 pesos. You're going to get 162,000 pesos. So TFC is equal to 162,000 pesos. To answer the next requirement, total fixed cost here is 162,000 pesos. Let's try to answer the last requirement. Assuming that for the month of May, the total machine hours incurred here is 7,400. So the variable component, assuming that this 7,400 machine hours is within the relevant range, then all the cost behavior that we have talked about in the previous lecture video will be held constant. The variable cost rate here is 40 pesos multiplied by 7,400 machine hours. That will give you 296,000. Within the relevant range, once again, the total fixed cost is constant, then we should be able to write it down. Fixed component, 162,000. For the budgeted cost for the month of May, you should be able to get 296,000 for the variable plus 162,000 for the fixed component, and that is equal to 458,000 pesos. Just a recap in this illustrative example, first is to get the highest and lowest level of activity, then whatever will be its total cost, then use it. Then always exclude any data for the outliers. Then always remember that within the relevant range, variable cost rate and total fixed costs are always constant. That's the end of our lecture discussion for the high-low method. Thank you all for watching.